everyone, you gotta dance with me. It's like, it's Thursday. Come on, Bruno. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius show, where we just facilitate the shit and we like cue in the geniuses.
That's a new word. Facilitate.
There
you go.
We have an amazing guest with us today, and we haven't seen Shannon for a hot minute. We were trying to do the math, but Shannon DeSouza is going to be with us today, and we are talking about something that everybody thinks about, ugly cries in the bathroom with a bottle of wine, says, I will do, I should, putting yourself first. And some people succeed, some people don't, but we really want you to succeed in 2023. So Liz, Michelle, and we welcome Shannon. Shannon, welcome back to the Eventbrite world.
Oh my goodness, what a warm welcome. And it couldn't be by people that I love so dearly. So thank you for thinking of me and bringing me in here. Hello, my friends. I haven't seen you in a long time.
I think it's like a hot minute of 10 million years or so.
Well, Corona Coaster, lots of things have happened. Millions of things have happened to us.
So I think people still, it resonates with them. Shannon DeSouza event movie, Shannon DeSouza attendees. But now let's fast forward and tell us what you're doing at the moment and where you're at in the world.
Absolutely. So it's Shannon DeSouza Coaching. And so I am out there helping women make more impact and income. That is the work that I've been called to do. Sales, because of my background, you guys know my background in software for 10 years, my own digital marketing agency. I served more than 350 women in that agency. And from there, I saw they have a big problem with sales. We all do. And so I said, no, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to spearhead this battle. And I am going to help women create the life, the impact, everything that they want. And really what it comes down to is releasing the fear, but also putting yourself first. And that's why this conversation is like perfect for us to have today, because that's exactly what happened to me. When I decided that I was good enough, I was worthy enough, I can dream, and I think you guys can resonate with this, as opposed to being in the fear of how is that going to happen. That's when my life decided to change.
So, okay. So when you say they had a huge problem with sales, are we talking about like selling themselves, like as experts?
So typically the women that I see, they're the owner of the business, and it is so easy for them to go into other practices or other people's businesses and sell anything for anybody else. Right. But as soon as you put their own name, their own face on it, there's a freeze, right? Yeah. And there's a big worthiness conversation that is actually being had. And the fear that comes up time and time and time again with the people that I'm talking to is a fear of being salesy. Mm-hmm. And then I ask, how many people have told you that you're salesy? Mm-hmm. Can you guess?
None.
Zero.
Mm-hmm. They told themselves though. The mind game is the big game.
Exactly. Silencing the fear.
Right.
And how do we learn how to silence this narrative? We have to ask for help.
So in regards to, going back to okay, you need to put yourself first. And everybody knows all the the things that go with it. You put your mask on before you put the mask on, blah, 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 in an airplane and all of this. Yeah. I mean, it sounds very cliche-ish sometimes, God forbid you try to tell that to a teenager. Yeah. You are just off the island. You're cringy mom. You're whatever. But there's truth to that. So let's start from, how do you put yourself first, or how do you not contain the fear, but control the fear when you're putting yourself first on a personal level? Because I think that's where people say, well, if I put myself first, everybody else is going to suffer. no, you know, and especially family leads, if you will, or am I wrong? I mean, I think I juggle with that all the time. There's huge guilt there.
So I would say that's a story, right?
Mhm.
And our brain will believe whatever story we tell it. So the very first thing is, how do we even challenge or question the story that's coming up in our brain? And so I'll tell you my story of how I embarked on this like self-love, self-worth, like all the things journey. You know, I was watching this coach as the emergence of coaches came up online. I started watching this coach. She was absolutely magnetic. I had been online for many, many years. I already had a successful business. And so my ego was telling me, oh no, I don't need to get help. I can do it all. And I was seeing her grow and grow and grow. And within 13 months, she made $1 million from her Facebook group.
Wow.
And the linchpin for me was I actually worked with a client, you know, very short contract. We didn't really connect that well. I introduced her to that coach. She said yes to herself, yes to her desires, yes to her vision. And within 3 months of working together, she had $100,000 launch.
Really?
$100,000. And I knew this woman. I knew both of them personally.
So
And
you change. So it's all about changing the mental story, the narrative.
it's about questioning
Okay.
the story, because we often think that when people are or our brain is talking to us, it's 100% true. But is it? And so one of the activities that I do with my own clients is when all these fears kind of come up, write it down on the left side hand paper. And what's the opposite of that on the right? And as soon as you do that pattern interrupt, your brain completely shifts out of it. It changes the fear.
So on a professional side, that fear, I see this more now. I don't know if it's because people have been extra burnt out, if you will, post-corona coaster. I mean, there's a lot of factors, right? Or like they are the sole breadwinner, or there's, you know, they lost their job over and over again, kind of thing. So there's this whole idea of the self-worth, but also like, you know, what am I good at anymore? And that self-doubt. So what is an exercise that people can say, okay, or what do they need to do in order for them to rewire their brain and change the narrative on a professional side? And you know, event profs, you know, like how they can rewire the wiring. They like know how to like just crumple it all up like Christmas lights and just throw it in a corner.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I would say is, first, look at your past, look at your historical triumphs. What have you done so well throughout your life? Because when you're in this season, it's so hard to see anything else. You're in a blizzard right now. But if you can pull out that scroll, and it probably is like miles long, of all of the success that you've had in your life, that can like immediately snap you back into, okay, this isn't true what I'm saying to myself.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, if you do not have community, that has to be something that you prioritize. And this is why the coaching world has blown up, is because people, business owners, have been doing it all themselves. They've been isolated. They've been in a bubble. And now, as we can bring community together, we can see that we're not alone going through this, and that we don't have to do this in the way that we're doing it right now. We have a choice, right?
But you also have people that celebrate you, that empathize with you, that are compassionate, etc.
And question,
right.
question, right?
Yeah. So Liz and Bruno, maybe this is our thing. Like, this is why we do cut the shit, because this is our community.
Mm-hmm. It's also nice to have the community when in those down times and you're thinking like, what are my successes? I don't know if this is a women thing, or maybe it's just a me thing, or maybe it's everyone does this. Where you're like, I don't know. I feel like I haven't had a success in 10 years, you know, and then you talk to your friends or the people who know you professionally, and they're the ones who are, you know, telling you, I know imposter syndrome is like huge right now. And Sean is bringing this up mixed in.
Yes.
When you're thinking about this, it's also the comparison trap. Like you might think, well, this is a success, but I saw Shannon do something way better. So that's not really a success. You know, it's like you get in your own head, but the community is so important because they're the ones who see you from the outside without all the messages you're telling yourself, who can say, I don't care what you think. This is really great. Dahlia, you are amazing at, we were talking about you being a magnet last time, right? Like at just attracting people to you. And that's not something maybe that you always
Depends if they bring me white cheddar popcorn. But like, you know, there's
Yeah,
always
don't try and hide from her. She will claw you out of that.
Well,
well,
let's just talk about what Sean said. Let's talk about
yeah,
what Sean
let's
said.
talk about
Imposter
that
syndrome,
mixed
it's a
into
real
this
thing.
yeah, the comparison trap and the fear of not doing enough is a real thing. And honestly, it's true. I don't know any other, you know, very intense profession as ours, as event profs, you know, or those that always have a side hustle, for example, or those that are trying to do enough for a client or at a show or to be different. And I think they're all traps of some kind, mental traps, truly.
And so this comes up all the time when we are online specifically. And I have suffered through this, and I've had to actually, it hit me so hard that I had to come offline for 3 months. And so how I was able to overcome this is there's a way, there's, you know, a strategy, it's proven. Create before you consume.
Create before you consume.
Create before you consume. Because as we're on the interwebs and just absorbing people's energies everywhere, we forget who we are. Because we often think that we're in a race and we all started at the same time. That didn't happen. Dahlia, you've started way ahead of me, right? And I've started way ahead of some of my clients, for example. So it's not fair to ourselves and our psyche to say, hey, we're all in the same race, because we're not. So it's so important to be online, because online gives you that visibility. Online attracts you clients or job opportunities or authority or influence or whatever it is that you're going after. But if you are holding on to everybody else's energy and you're not speaking your own truth, then that's what's holding you back, right?
Plus online, it takes like some nice imagery and a good copyright, you know, some little copy to make it look like you're a rock star, you know, so like you're not actually looking at the lives. That's why I think community is important. And we've talked on the show before about online communities and whether that's a good idea or not, and they have their place. But that's why your community, I think, has to be in person. It has to be people who you see their mess as much as you see the stuff that gets put on social media that you get to see, and they see yours. And that's what makes that, I think, even more important, because on social or just in general in the world, you know, you Google someone, anyone's website can look great. I do that as a side gig, building websites. And
you'll probably do it better for others than your own.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know when you have a side to gig in. Like, what is this, like between 3 and 3:13 a.m.? What?
Sometimes. That's like a secret little interest of mine. Like if I could just do that all the time, that would be fun. But yeah, I think it's important to not compare, you know, what you're seeing, especially online, makes people feel like that imposter syndrome.
But here's the next step, Liz. Unfollow, delete, mute. Those buttons exist for a reason.
Absolutely.
So cut the shit of your own network, right?
Drink a shot. Okay.
Right? Yeah. Whoever is not serving you, including me. I trigger a lot of people because I talk about money. But I talk about money because I want people to know it's available to them. Right?
But that's because their money story is not wired like your money story.
Well, and that's what it takes to get there, right?
Exactly.
Is to rewire your money story.
So I would challenge, here's one challenge that I would put to everybody that's listening to this. And, you know, putting yourself first should not be an option anymore. It should be a requirement. So that's one. Second is, I know that 2023, it was kind of funny because when Corona Coaster happened and some of the media came to me and they're like, oh, so when is all of this going to be normal? Like by end of year? I'm like, are you on crack? Like this is going to take until 2025. And they're like, we can't publish you saying that. That is very negative. I'm like, really? All right. So 2023, in my opinion, is going to be more challenging than what we went through. But the opportunity here is I challenge everybody to have a strategy for themselves first. No matter if you are a head of a department, if you are a freelancer, contractor, just lost your job, and losing jobs is actually a great opportunity. Some of these people that have been in jobs for 15 years, I respect that you have a legacy. I respect that you have tenure, and I respect that you've been in the company for such a long time, but there is a new launch pad for you. But I do think that people should prioritize for themselves a strategy plan of where they want to go from point A to point B, and basically work on how they will get there. It can mean cleansing, like Rachel was saying. It can mean deleting. It can mean creating,
Saying
right?
no.
But saying no, exactly. And Lauren has a great point. I mean, she also wants to hear from us in regards to, you've been known for pulling things off. The Jill of all trades, the Jack of all trades, those are not skill sets anymore. This is where I would say build the moats. I call it build the moat, where it's like, okay, I'm the castle. Here's a moat. Like Bruno is saying, say no, but also you need to protect yourself and you need to set the boundaries. That means you need to communicate the boundaries out. So your strategy plan needs a communication plan.
Well, and I would even
on Friday.
I would even say earlier than that, they need to have a conversation with themselves around what are the boundaries.
Yep.
Right? They need to know that themselves. And I've been that person, Jill. I've been, right? Like, give it to Shannon. Shannon will get everything done. And then I'm burned everywhere. I'm useless to everybody after that. Right. And whose fault was that? It was my own. Right. Because it's a self-worth thing, saying like, I don't have to do this. And it's a people pleasing thing. So right now I'm doing a lot of work around releasing people pleasing, and I'm trying to do things for other people. And where did it come from? It came from our childhood, or for me, it came from my childhood, right? Like finish the food on my plate so my mom doesn't get upset with me so I can please her. Right?
Is that a Middle Eastern thing too? Because I think
That's an Indian thing.
Well, hey, close enough.
Right? But then it bleeds into everywhere else.
Yeah.
So knowing that boundary for ourselves.
Well, I think event profs are by nature people pleasers. I think that's part of what we got into that role. And Lauren, the last thing you said, just letting some balls drop goes against everything I am as a human. I think so many event profs would resonate with that. And I think one thing I'm learning myself, and you're reminding me, Shannon, is it's really important to know what are your balls. Because are you dropping your balls, or are you just letting other people drop their balls? And that is,
and then you're picking it up.
Yeah, you're picking it up and hoping that you can save the day, and maybe they'll like you and someone else will appreciate it. And yes, sometimes I know you pick up those balls because it impacts you. It's like, well, if that ball drops, then this is going to be harder, and that's going to, I get it. But I think, this other LinkedIn user, I'm not sure who this is, says we cannot be our best if we don't feel our best. You have to protect yourself. And
Noreen Hendershot.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Always been a yes girl because I was afraid other people would think I couldn't handle the work.
So people pleasing again, right? Yeah. And I see this time and time again, all the time with clients or prospects. But I want you to check, like there was a conversation that just had with Lauren around that goes against who she is, right? And it's like, I want you to challenge that narrative. Is that really who you are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Question that.
So it's interesting because maybe, and it would be a beautiful thing, is if everybody started, putting themselves first and building that plan and communicating, nope, this is my lane, you go to your lane, all of that. And there's these clear directions, and there's these clear course of actions, and and I know we're going to talk about like giving yourself grace and so forth, but also, if that happens, which would be a beautiful thing, then we sort of have to figure out who we are in tandem with, and that's how teams are going to be built. So it's like, Liz and Bruno and Shannon, they have these lanes. Dahlia has this lane. And so how does it fit together? Because obviously our paths are different, our speeds are different, and that's fine. But you're going to find your circle or your community where you're going to excel together.
And I want to talk about a snake for a second.
A what?
A snake.
Okay.
A snake always sheds its skin. Why?
Feels good.
Reinvent themselves?
Because it's constantly expanding. It's growing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't question why it's shedding its skin. It's just a part of its journey. It knows it has to be done. And so when you see yourself struggling to keep that skin on, question that. Is that even necessary? And so for those of you in this transition, right, and wanting to stay in where you are because it's comfortable, question that. Is this necessary? Is this an opportunity for me? And so for me, that shows up in friendships and relationships. I'm in this big season of shedding my own skin and only wanting to be in circles where I'm valued, right? And that the energy exchange is equal. And if that happens to be with only 3 people, I'm not judging myself for that. It is what it is. This is the season of that, right? And so the same thing is if the people around you don't understand what you're going through, it's not for them to necessarily understand. It's for you to lead and for you to do what's right for you for your own mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question, Shannon. I know you've talked about self-love and self-conversation and things like that. Where do you weigh in on ritual? Having sort of a ritual goes totally against my personality because I'm just always, I like new stuff. I like doing things differently. I like driving a different route every day, kind of thing. But I find comfort in a level of ritual in terms of starting out the day a certain way, making sure that certain things fall somewhere into my day so that by the end, I'm not burnt out. I feel like I've actually accomplished something if I adhere to a level of ritual.
Yeah. And ritual is huge for me as well. And if you actually start learning about, very successful, high achieving, either athletes or entrepreneurs, morning routines, for example, is non-negotiable. And waking up at a certain time is non-negotiable. And so my morning routine, what that looks like is I wake up, I do an abundance meditation on YouTube. I just like lay in my bed with that for 15 minutes. And sometimes it can have affirmations or not, depends on the one I decide to choose that morning. Then I will wake up, have my coffee, listen to it with Abraham Hicks. Those of you who don't know Abraham Hicks, please go to YouTube. This will change your life. I promise you. What you are searching for is here. And then, I have, family time and whatnot over there. And that is what grounds me to be able to make space for me and then start my day so much more productively. In the summertime, there's also exercise during that time as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but Bruno, when you say that you believe in ritual, but you also like to take different, ways of directions and so forth when driving and so forth, that's actually part of a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
So,
my ritual is being anti-ritual.
Yeah. But which actually is a thing. It truly is a thing. But so Shannon, you touched on Abraham Hicks. I actually went to one of their sessions.
Wow.
When her husband was still alive, actually.
Wow.
So, but and I get it. The secret is not for everybody. The law of attraction is not for everybody. It would be great in the comments if anybody can, raise their hand if they are familiar with the law of attraction. But quickly talk about what the law of attraction is and how it lends itself to prioritizing you first.
The law of attraction is whatever you focus on actually happens, in that simple, plain term. So if you are afraid of crossing the street and, you know, falling and something random like that happening, that'll probably manifest in your life in some way. Versus if you believe in yourself and you know that you're going to get an even better job from this layoff, that is what's going to happen to you. Right. And so it's so important during this time, and the entire Corona coaster, myself, I practice not playing into the fear, not even listening to what was happening externally, and just like focusing on me and my own lane and what is it I needed to do. Because I know that I get affected very, very, very deeply by these kind of just toxic messages. And so I have to be very, very careful what I put into my body and my brain, just like my mouth, right? And it's the same way. So whatever I'm focused on, then that happens to me, right? And so that, in simplest format, that's what it is.
Yeah. I think, you know, I've been saying this to a couple of people recently where, you know, obviously the recession and the messaging around the recession and about what's happening within the workspace, as well as just the flux of everything that's been happening in the last couple of years, it is based on fear. Like there is a huge fear factor, but to a point where, you know, I see some of the companies we work with, even event profs, where they're like, oh, it's not in the budget, we're not going to do it. There is a fear factor that actually gets absorbed in the communication, gets absorbed within teams. It becomes a mental state to a point that your clients, if you're a supplier, if you don't watch out, your employees might actually be showing fear to them because they're afraid of for their job. They're afraid of like of different things. So it makes me wonder where, you know, are we putting ourselves in a recession mode mentally when it doesn't even have to be that way?
Girlfriend, this is a big conversation that's being had, especially in the world that I'm in. Is the economy in a recession, or am I in a recession?
Exactly.
Because that's a choice, right? That's a mental state and an energy that you're holding. And it is so important to be able to distinguish between those two things, because those are not the same.
No, they're not the same. I mean, I know I know that this is all we only have like a couple of minutes left, but I know that this is all about, you know, putting yourself first. There's one more point that you wanted to share, Shannon, which is the third point about giving yourself grace.
So a part of this whole journey is not shitting on yourself when you're not doing what you intended to do. And so if you can learn how to be nice to yourself, like you're probably nice to your children or your clients or your employees or your coworkers, like that is a game changer. And so just notice what you're saying, how frequently you're saying, what are the words that you're using, right? Because that is, it shows up in so many different places. It shows up in our health, right? It shows up in our work. It shows up in our relationships, and it all kind of starts from within, but we need to have an awareness around that. So if something is not going the way that you wanted it to, and your first default is to say something negative to yourself, like just write it down, question it. And then what happens when we question it again, it's a pattern interrupt.
So this is sort of a metaphorical and philosophical question. But when I think about all the potential ways to achieve what we want, self-actualization and realization and success, maybe for some money, is there one light, many windows, or are there many windows in one light? So many, many ways to accept and pathways in which to achieve, or should I be looking for one path, one sort of way to,
I hear
get
what you're
where I
saying.
want to go? Mhm.
So I'll say that there are many, many, many different windows, but you get to decide the path to what window you want to choose.
Okay. And I can choose the light from different windows at different times, can't I?
24 hours in the day, and like the whole world is your oyster. Like maybe your windows are moving with the sun around the world, right? Like
Mhm.
again, you get to decide how that exists, and it's not for anybody else to say it's right or wrong.
Mhm.
Well, Bruno, you just nailed it though right now, because basically what we're saying is you put yourself first, but you're also the pilot, right?
Mhm.
Of the ship or the plane or whatever, in the sense of you're in control. So you have many, many windows. You get to choose what window at what time, how much light, but nobody chooses it for you.
Yes.
No, but I think having a counselor, a guide, but a knowledgeable person, a coach, whatever, helps you discern which of the windows to, pay attention to.
Right.
Because my problem is I focus on all of them at once sometimes. I have to like really think deeply about, which one is calling to me. And sometimes I need help, just deciding that.
I think we all need help. We are all worthy of getting help. And I know that was a story that was really, really hard for me. And I had to like really break through that there's nothing wrong with me if I get help. So that to me is an important message for everybody to hear. And that was one of the notes, is like investing in yourself. You don't invest when times are good. You invest when times are bad to make sure that you get through that time. Right? Like that is how it happens. And so many people can be in fear right now and doing nothing, and then they get stuck. Or you can decide to accelerate and bypass the mud, right? Like it's a choice.
Yeah. Well, this has been enlightening. I think we have weekend homework for ourselves.
We
Shannon,
got lots of
it was
comments.
it was awesome having you on the show. I think there
I
might
want to
be
know how we reach Shannon. How do we get to Shannon?
Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn, Shannon DeSouza. You can find me on Instagram, the Shannon DeSouza. You can find me on Facebook, Shannon DeSouza. You can find me on TikTok, the Shannon DeSouza. I'm on every single platform. My DMs are always open to you guys. I truly believe in relationship and connection, helping and serving. So please let me know how I can be of service.
perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us for Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius. You've got to put yourself first. If you need help putting your strategy together, you know who to come to. Coffee in hand, of course. We will see you next Thursday. We have next Thursday Inside the World of Discord Communities with Nick Borelli. And then on February 23rd, how to do epic shit with your team. And if you have any topics that you would like to discuss, ping us, DM us. Smoke signals work as well. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.